Hey, Tubers. I don't know that I have enough material for today to talk about, but obviously I have a gift of gab, and once my brain starts flowing, that's often the case that I can continue for an inordinate amount of time. So let's see how far I get. So the last recording I did, which I haven't posted yet, I haven't edited it either. Edited it yet either. Huh. The word tongue twister I keep running into. But I talked about having like a core value, right? A core metric. And, I don't have a good corresponding concept similar to the idea of guardrails. Maybe it's a center line, which I feel works in bowling and in driving, depending on how you want to use the guardrail. So maybe a center line. I don't know. But something to rally around, something that is the heart of your circle or the center of your circle. The inner circle of your circle, right? Not the square of your circle. But, I felt, I don't know, I really feel like if you don't have compassion, empathy, sympathy, whatever it is that you need to appreciate that other people exist and that they have a value intrinsically because they are other people, then you're already starting out in a really weird place that I would argue is morally bad. If you can't accept that basic premise, and look, I'm not trying to suggest that this statement by itself should apply to terrible people or only good people. What I'm suggesting is that people exist, and we have to accept that fact. We have to accept that we're all people. Terrible people are still people. I may angrily refer to certain types of people or certain people that do certain things as animals, as savage animals. They're still technically people, and I still have to respect that they are people. However, again, based on the very central premise, I feel like that's super important. Oh, God. Punch a Chewy. Nah, I'm fine. I had plenty of time. Plenty of time for that. What was I talking about? Yeah. So people, respect that people exist, that they are people. Let's start there, right? I don't care where they're from. I don't care what their skin color is. I mean, what an absurd thing to... I understand tribalism to an extent. When you are, and I probably talked about this already, like when you're fighting for survival and you have a group outside of your group trying to take the stuff that you need for your group, yeah, I understand the urge to want to protect that. And I understand often the necessity of having to try to take what someone else has because you don't have anything and they have stuff and it's close to you. And it's your only potential option, right? I understand that these are things that happen, that have happened, that will continue to happen. I'm not saying I agree with the taking of things. I'm just suggesting that on a purely survival instinct basis, I get tribalism. However, I would like to think that we as a planet have moved beyond that to some extent. We're not perfect. We're not perfectly beyond that, but we are at a point in many societies around the world where tribalism is unnecessary, right? We have the technology. We've had the technology, in terms of medicine, in terms of food production, in terms of housing. I mean, we have the means to support everybody, to keep everybody alive, keep everybody housed, keep everybody taken care of. And for some reason, we haven't given up this idea that the other is still our enemy. For just for the sake of being the other, right? Where I'm suggesting that your center line, your core metric, your whatever, is that people intrinsically have value because they are people. They are specifically people like us. It seems like the opposite is true. Like people are only worth your compassion if they're on your side, if they agree with you on something. And this is not new, obviously. I do often refer to it as simply tribalism, as simply us versus the other, because that is by and large what we're talking about. We're talking about the in group, the out group, uh, groupthink, mass hallucinations. We're talking about all this stuff that suggests we need to be divisive. We need to be segregationalist or whatever, segregationist, that we need to be dicks to one another because you're not part of my group. And look, not for nothing, this goes back to another thing that I've been discussing, or that I discussed, I don't know, a couple of recordings anyway. What is your metric? What defines who is in your in group, right? I grew up in the evangelical movement of the 80s, right, which I definitely said before, and you are unfamiliar with that, I feel very good for you. It is not something that I appreciate from growing up. I mean, it gives me a perspective on religion that borders on spiteful. I'm sorry, it probably doesn't border on it. It probably goes into spiteful, but it just exposes the real nonsense of so much of the faiths that are out there, especially the prosperity gospel that has been going on for decades and continues to go on. I saw Paula White, the president's virtual advisor, like he gives a shit, trying to convince people that if they give her $1,000, they will receive 7 blessings before Easter. And look, you're not buying something, you're not getting something. You are tithing. You are offering a blessing of your wealth to God through Paula White, and you are going to be, with the knowledge that you will be accepting, receiving blessings from God. That to me sounds like a purchase. That to me sounds like I'm buying something, right? If I give a representative of God $1,000, God will give me something. Where's God's cut in all of this, by the way? I have a real difficult time believing that the Abrahamic God created capitalism, or thought that, minting coins and trading the way that we've, specifically turned economics into, the way that we've evolved economics into what it is now. I have very serious doubts that was part of the plan. And I don't even believe in God, so it clearly wasn't part of anyone's plan. But my point is, and look, maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe I am discounting the whole, hey, if you rape someone, you have to pay her father. You have to pay her like 50 shekels or a goat or something. I think goats were worth more technically, but maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe the Abrahamic God is a big fan of dollars and cents. I don't know what God's going to do with it, but that's a whole different issue. Look, my point is, do I have a point? Did I have a point? I thought I had a point. My point is, where did I go? Why did I jump to Paula White? I didn't necessarily mean to. Oh, yeah, all right. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So this goes back to a different point, which I guess I consider guardrail. It's also an adage. It's also out of the Bible, at least the way that the English translations have placed it, which is the love of money is the root of all evil, right? I mean, we're not even, I mean, look, power is power, but power enriches people. To have power usually coincides with some amount of monetary increase or financial whatevers. And maybe I'm overselling it, right? Maybe I don't mean middle managers. I don't mean, the shift supervisor at McDonald's, right? I'm talking about, political power. There are very few people in the House or Senate and the United States Congress that are not, millionaires, that did not become millionaires. And look, I know that I've had people come at me about Bernie. Well, what about Bernie? He's a millionaire. Yeah, he's also 80 years old. He's been doing this for 50 years or whatever. And he's not that rich in comparison to other members of Congress, in comparison to how many members of Congress do insider trading that is illegal for everybody else on the planet, except for elected officials, apparently. Come on, they're not exploiting the system. They're spitting in its face. And what's the result? Evil, exploitation, slavery. apartheid. We see people who want, look, we're trying to take, I'm sorry, the United States is trying to take over Greenland? I'm sorry, let me be way more specific. Donald Trump and his collection of idiots want to take over Greenland for national security. No, they want metals. They want rare earth materials that are inside Greenland. They want rare earth metals that are in the Ukraine. That's the only reason that they're trying to figure out a deal. They want to split up the Ukraine with Putin and, get some rare earth metals. They don't care about the people of Ukraine. They don't care about Zelensky. They barely care about Putin. What they care about is getting paid. That's what they care about. They're cutting up so much of the government that the argument about a government shutdown being a problem is kind of ludicrous right now because they're firing so many goddamn people. It's infuriating to me. And it's all about money. It's all about the love of money. They're not doing this to find fraud, waste, and abuse. They are the fraud, waste, and abuse. Elon's trying to pay people $1 million again to vote for a Supreme Court justice in Wisconsin. And why? Well, I heard recently that there may be a law on the books in Wisconsin where car manufacturers can also have their own dealerships. They have to go through a car dealership independently. And guess what? Musk sells his own cars with no middleman. Huh, interesting. Interesting that would be a thing that would be important and relevant to this guy. And again, he's bribing people. I'm sorry, he's wording it differently so it doesn't appear to be an actual literal bribe, but it's a fucking bribe. And why? So he can have what? More dollars? More zeros next to his name? He is pro-Nazi. All right. So there's kind of a gap in my thinking, only because I did a recording yesterday, and I got distracted by a phone call, and then now it's today. So I did re-listen to what I did. Minimal edits really need to happen to that one, but I was going off on Elon Musk at the time, and I've since learned some more things. I mean, look, the reality seems to be pretty blatantly that many of the things that Doge is going after has to do with things that are being regulated or institutions that are regulating his businesses, right? The Supreme Court case in Wisconsin, which he lost, incidentally. I'm sorry, his candidate lost. I guess non-incidentally, very excitingly lost. Found ways to prevent someone like him from doing business. I don't know that law that I mentioned specifically was designed to be a blockage to him or not, but it could have been some idea around preventing the potential for a monopoly, right? So if a company that does manufacture and sell its own cars could then start knocking out, competition, and then that would bring precedent so that potentially larger car companies could start doing the same thing, and then they can just sell direct to consumers and not have to go through a middleman. I don't know. These are just things that I'm thinking about in terms of what that law would represent as a hindrance to Tesla, whatnot. Calling Social Security a Ponzi scheme, which it is not. Calling it an entitlement, which it's not. It's a benefit, right? These are things that just need to be kind of looked at in terms of, they're trying to run. They're not only trying to run the U.S. government like a business, they're trying to run it like a business that is owned by Trump and his associates, by Musk and what Musk wants, as already the richest person to have ever existed on this planet throughout history. It's just unsettling where these things are at. And the whole point is still about caring for the existence of other people, period, right? Just respecting that they exist. Are they going to make decisions that you don't agree with? Probably. Your kids do, right? Your family does. I know politicians do, but that's not what makes them inherently a problem. That's not the kind of thing that I'm trying to rail against. What I'm trying to rail against is just this denunciation of humanity that there are to hate, as opposed to doing kind of one of two things, right? It's not necessarily binary in this respect, but either just admitting you just want to hate other people, or learn about the other people and figure out that your hate is completely unwarranted, baseless, needless. I mean, these are kind of your options. So, I think it's worthwhile to consider that our own individual worldview is not correct, which I guess goes into a different guardrail or whatever the hell I'm calling these things now, that I had, which is, you might be wrong. And I guess more specifically, I might be wrong, right? Like if you want to think about it in the context of something you would say to yourself, like as a mantra, as a reminder, I might be wrong. And there are degrees in kind of determining what that specifically means. I mean, obviously there's just blatant fact, but depending on who you're talking to and what their metric is, and not their core metric, but what it is that they're talking about and what it is that they're trying to get across as a point, you may very well be giving them exactly correct information, but it may not be what is needed in the situation, right? In the discussion, in what's happening at present. You may just be stirring up a problem. But if you go into it with the humility, I mean, that whole concept is about humility. With the humility that you may be incorrect, you may also just misunderstand what they're talking about. And respecting the fact that they're a person, I, I think if you give people the benefit of the doubt in a lot of respects, a lot of times you're gonna be able to remain calmer. And look, I think there are things that are blatantly stupid, detrimental, harmful. These are things I'm probably not going to remain calm about. And there's a certain element of time and place for having those discussions, and there's a certain amount of just general fear of confrontation. But I like to think that if push came to shove, I mean, I'd probably be knocked down just because of my balance and my weight. But that I put up some amount of argument at least. Maybe I wouldn't. Maybe my blowhard is too weak. But maybe putting myself out there like this is, how I build myself up to that. But I've had arguments with people. I've had it online. I've had it in person. I've had it over the phone. I've had relatives stop talking to me because of my stances. I mean, it's, I didn't discount that the people I was arguing with were people. I just thought that their ideas were terrible. And I had a litany of reasons why. You are kidding me, right? Is this on purpose? What? Why would you do that? You could have made that light. Oh my God. Did I take my meds today? Did I take them yesterday? Oh, now you want to turn? Maybe I'm rambling at this point. Maybe I was more or less done yesterday, or I just kind of lost that flow. Look, I know that it's easy enough to take what I'm proposing and potentially turning it on its head, right? Because obviously I have lines, right? I have, respect that people are people unless they do X. Well, somebody else's X might be different, and it might be one that I don't agree with. Using philosophical ideologies, using religious theology to justify a terrible idea, that's, a possibility. Do I believe that I'm going to inspire people to do anything at all? I don't know. I have a hard enough time getting my kid to do homework, right? And I think from a larger argument, part of the issue with religious ideology that I have is aside from its violent, misogynistic, exploitative nature, it's contradictory. and people claim to adhere to it in its entirety without understanding that there are contradictions, without really seeing the amount of times that they change their metric, right? They extend the goalposts, as is said in the parlance. They say one thing, you knock it down, they say something else to somehow still support their argument without acknowledging necessarily that the other part of their argument has been dismantled. And non-religious people are guilty of this as well, of trying to find some way to counter it. It's like a game of tennis where we're going back and forth, but the ball keeps changing. Nobody seems to notice. We don't know how to argue, how to really articulate all the time what it is that we are trying to get across. And, I have pushed people to a point where they've just not necessarily threw up their arms, but they've gotten to a different point. And so, well, that's what I meant. Well, that's not what you told me. That's not what we started this argument with. You made this claim. I countered the claim, and now we're here because that's really what you meant. And part of it is I have an interest, a layman's interest, apparently, in argument, in debate, in discussion. And I'm not perfect, right? I expect people to call me out when I kind of follow up my own inconsistencies, because I don't want to pretend that I'm better than people. I'm just different. Just think about it differently. I think about things differently. Everybody thinks about things differently. I have people in my life that if I didn't listen to them, I would be so much worse off. And if I did listen to them, I would be so much worse off, right? So, a lot of it comes down to, does the idea itself have merit? Does the point have merit? Are you able to, supply it with a reason, if it's an opinion, or fact, right? Or supporting evidence if it's meant to be a fact. And, it can be more complex to get into deeper arguments when you have a specific set of source material that you reference, and as things happen around you that you're not fully comprehensive of, or you don't have all the detail in your head, there's definitely that risk of just saying to someone to look it up. Do your own research, right? That's a real popular idiom. Do your own research. All right, well, sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously, in order to battle ignorance and, to some extent, skepticism, you would need to do research. No one's going to do all the research required. But they're going to have a lot of opinion about it just the same, and they're going to just tell you to do the research. But that's not really what they mean. You don't mean do the research, right? In this day and age where we have access to countless amounts of information and countless amounts of disinformation, it feels like, by and large, the people that say do your own research are the people that don't know at all what they're talking about. They heard it from a pundit, from a talk radio, talking head, whatever, who is on their side, who they believe is on their side, right? Who suggests that, well, I identify as X, and they also identify as X. They identify as one and purple as well, but since they identify as X and I'm X, that means they're good. But, you find out that the person that they're referencing is someone like Alex Jones, Paula White, someone who is an absolute grifter. They're a liar. They're just trying to get your attention and your money. They don't care about the consequences. They only care about lining their own pockets. That's what they care about. You're not getting facts from people. You're getting manipulated speech. You're getting attempts at propaganda. You're getting them trying to trick you into believing them, into thinking that because I like this guy and this guy likes this guy, then this other guy is someone that I should also like. It's a friend of my friend. My friend is the friend itself. My friend, could they be my enemy? This is the real problem that I've learned about hero worship, about finding out that their core metric, their center line, isn't what I would want. I looked up to Sam Harris for a long time, and I've recently begun to understand how there has been a subtle and not so subtle move to, at the very least, genetic superiority complex. I like Tolkien. I haven't found a reason not to like Tolkien yet. He's probably a literary hero. Carl Sagan, another good guy as far as I'm aware. Kind of checks all the boxes that I would want checked in terms of uh, where do they fall in my hierarchy of my own kind of moral philosophy. And I haven't heard anything to suggest that they shouldn't be higher on my list. It doesn't do anything for them. It doesn't do anything for me, really. Mr. Rogers is another pretty good dude, right? Uh, and what was it about Fred Rogers? What was the pretty consistent thing for him? People. He appreciated people. He shared what was like a kiddie pool with a black man. They had their feet in the water, which had never been done before. Betty White put her reputation on the line for a black singer or something. I don't remember the extent of that story. I don't remember if that was her club or if she was going to a club. I can't. Something about Betty White. I'll have to look this up. Right. These are people that went totally against the grain, totally against what societal norms suggested. They said, these are people. What is your deal? Why do you care so much? What is the hate? What is the needless hate? Especially for people that was already oppressed and have continued to be oppressed throughout the history of this country. Why are you still shitting on them? Again, I'm not saying we have to bend over backwards. We don't have to move people into our homes, but to discount them out of hand, to just, hey, you're not, part of my tribe or whatever. You're not part of my in-group. So you deserve nothing. It's horrible. It's a horrible way to live. It's a horrible way to see other people. Yeah. Anyway, that's a little more than I guess I anticipated for trying to close this out. But listen to other people. I'm not saying you have to respect their beliefs, their opinions. You have to respect that they have them, and respect that at least to some extent they believe they are correct and that they have reasons why. And then challenge those reasons if you want to, or just ignore them and move on with your life. I don't think people should have to go around and argue all the time. I think it's part of why I appreciate protests. You get a group of people that are all saying the same thing, they're making the same stand. You're not having these one-off arguments with people. You're not going to make change that way, right? My brother and I agreeing firmly on something and being absolutely correct does nothing. Write to your representatives, call your representatives, join a protest, start a letter writing campaign. Just tell other people to leave other people alone. If they're hating on someone for existing, tell them to mind their own business. What is what is the problem? You're not going after a person for doing something harmful or dangerous or scary. You're doing it because they exist. Try to be kind. Try to be better than you were before. And brush your teeth.